everyone, welcome back. So we're kind of back after like a little mini vacation from like, doing a couple of vlogs. Got really hectic in June and May, so just couldn't find a time to meet up. And so June, the last episode, Pride Month, we're talking about, I don't know why I'm screaming it, but Pride Month and stuff. Do you celebrate or partake in Pride Month?
Well, this year, one of our children baked a pride cake, and they made it like all rainbow colored with like the word gay in pearls across the front. And one of the grandmothers, who will remain nameless, was very upset about it.
Oh no.
Yeah. And she was like, because she's very like anti, and she was kind of being a little how would you say, I want to say this in a nice way, but she was being very...
Passive aggressive?
No, like outright, like that's wrong, and like using derogatory language toward the LGBTQ plus community. And so of course that means I'm going to go out and buy all the ingredients for the cake. Make sure we have every color of the rainbow. And I did something I've never done before too. I actually purchased like some of the merch that you see around during Pride Month. So we had merch and we had a cake, and this grandma was very like not happy about it, and she wouldn't eat it. She would not eat it because at first she was like whatever, I'll take a piece. And then just as she was gonna bite into it, the kid is all like, Grandma, if you take a bite of that, you're gay. so it was like this whole thing, and and the reason why I'm just like, I'm gonna stand by my kid, you know what I mean? Because number one, that's what parents are supposed to do. But number two, I don't ever want any of my children to feel like they're being shunned by their own family. Or, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want that to hurt them to the point where, because so many people, they start to feel removed from their family, they start to feel discluded or like not accepted, isolated then, and then there's also a high rate of LGBTQ plus folks in the Native community that, they take their own lives. And so I'm just like, oh hell no. You know what I mean? Like, if I have to piss a grandma off, I will. Because my baby, like, deserves to feel respected and accepted. So.
Well, like, yeah. I don't partake. I don't celebrate because I don't like crowds.
I know. I've never been to like Pride in the Pines they do in Flagstaff. I've never been to that. I was invited this year, but I'm busy. Actually, today.
Oh, is it today?
Yeah. It's actually today.
Juneteenth is.
Yeah.
Sunday.
So Pride in the Pines is today, but I'm busy, as you can see. But I've never been to a parade either.
So back in high school, I had a German exchange student kind of stay with me, but I was in the dorms, so she stayed with another family, but like I was her link. She was my partner. And so for the weekends we took her back to the reservation one weekend, and then one weekend we went down to Phoenix to go to like the Heard Museum. And so we were walking to the Heard Museum, but between us and the Heard Museum there was a pride parade.
Oh wow.
So we were like adjacent to a pride parade.
I was adjacent to a pride parade once.
But there's multiple members of like my family and my close friend circles growing up who are part of the LGBTQA plus community. And so it's never been like, I feel like it's never been something I had to like openly declare that I support these people, that I'm not shunning them. It's just like, oh, you're my friend and you've come out and you're
just
like,
in practice.
it's just, I've never been like I don't know. I don't announce it,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah, I don't either. Well, I kind of did this year, but it was just because.
Just to be petty.
I was kind of.
You know, like, even like from my young like years, my aunt, my mom's youngest sister, so she was like in high school when I was like 5, 10, something like that. I don't know. So long ago. She was she declared that she was a lesbian, so she had a girlfriend and everything. And her sisters rallied around her and said, "Yeah, we support you." Blah blah blah. Even though, like, you know, my grandpa was Catholic.
Oh.
And but he didn't shun her or anything. He just kind of like
Yeah.
persnickety and like, you know, "Oh no, she's gay because her name's Samantha and we always called her Sam." And it's like, okay. You know, they say comments like that, and like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
my family, like, we're mean in the nicest way to each other sometimes, you know, and
Yeah.
so, like, you know, people being gay, and it wasn't new or shocking to me. It's just like, people love who they love, and that's how it's always been for me. Even like some of my friends from high school, them transitioning,
Oh, yeah.
and everything. Even, you know, my soulmate Mona, she's bi, so it's just they're just people to me, and
Yeah.
there's no reason. I don't want to say there's no reason to make a big fuss about it, but there's no reason for me to be like, "Oh, I support you openly everywhere on social media and everything," because that's
Yeah.
not how I am. But I just want people to know that, like, I've always been. I accept you for who you are, as long as you're not like hurting people or whatever.
Yeah. Like, I definitely consider myself an ally, and I think it's great that you're an ally too, because I think it's super cool when people are. They're not like jerks. You know, I've said this so many times before at this point, but I was a women and gender studies major in college, and so learning a lot about gender identity and the spectrum of identities that exist and how they're all normal. You know what I mean? And so my whole life has really been, since that point, you know, being as accepting and as inclusive as possible for the sake of humanity. You know what I mean? It's not like, I'm not trying to, like, you know, a lot of it too, like, when it's based, like, on sexuality primarily, as opposed to just, like, your gender role that you want to play. When it's sexuality, I feel like that's such a private thing. Like, why get in someone's business about that? And I think so many people do. You know, they make it their business, and it's just like, yo, that's not your business. You know, like, stay out of it. And that's what I tell, like, my kids, too. I'm like, it's nobody's business but your own, and you don't have to declare to anybody. Because now that's kind of, there's pressure right now that some of them have talked about from school or schoolmates. You know, there's, like, this pressure to identify or this pressure to explain. And I'm just like, first of all, you don't gotta say nothing. You know what I mean? If people accept you for who you are, then those are the people you want to be around. If there's people that don't and they question you or they want to be jerks about it, then just don't deal with them. Like, you know, you don't have to talk to them. You don't have to interact with them. You don't have to be friends with them. You know, I'm like, it'll make your life so much easier, you know, when you surround yourself with people that are cool and they like you for who you are as a person, and they're not all trying to get in your business either. So, just, like, really straightforward like that. So, yeah, I don't really celebrate it, like you said, for the reason that I think we're going to go into next, is that I do feel like, personally, I feel like Pride Month has really become corporatized.
Oh, yeah.
And so, for that reason, I'm really, like, what I wrote in our notes is just that, you know, there's a lot of corporate advertising that goes on during the month of June for the sake of having, but for the sake of capturing the LGBTQA plus community or customer base so that they can become consumers of a product or buy into something, as opposed to just being inclusive. And I was watching another YouTube channel where they were talking about this, where Manny MUA was saying that a lot of companies, like cosmetic companies, they'll reach out to him and they'll ask him to be part of an ad or some sort of promotion during the month of June. But he's like, they don't really reach out any other time during the year. And why not? Why are they only reaching out to us now? And he's like, I really strongly have always felt that it's just so that they can tap into our community. Like, oh, here's the face of, for this month, we have this individual who's a part of your community, so buy our products, kind of thing. And I think I know that he doesn't appreciate it and gets annoyed by it, and I feel like he's probably not alone, So, yeah.
But it's also marketing, like during Black History Month, there's a lot of emphasis on African American products and people and, the things that they make. So, like, it's kind of just marketing, some like at the top and whatnot.
Yeah. The good thing about, I think, so there's pros and cons naturally. I mentioned the cons. Excuse me. I feel like the pros are that we are getting to a point where it's kind of becoming normalized. But I also found out that a lot of the Pride merch that goes into some big companies such as like Target, it actually doesn't often hit some of the smaller communities. Oftentimes it's mostly metropolitan spaces where there's a greater population of people within that community. So it's not, you know what I mean? So I think it's really interesting. Yeah. But anyways.
I think I saw another video too where like, I don't remember what it was, but they compared to like oh, look at all the company logos that are now rainbows for this month, and like it just showed like a big list of like logos that changed for the month. And that was one thing I kind of thought about for my business, for Happy Accidents. I'm like, should we make a Pride post? But like, I don't feel like anyone of our owners are, I don't want to say gay, but like, obviously me and my husband, we're very cis, and then I don't want to assume anything about you, Ryan, but he's only ever had girlfriends. So, I'm
not going to answer that on camera. Only for the sake of, I really do believe that like sexuality and identity are they're so like personal, and I just don't. A lot of things that are super personal, I'm not going to put them out there.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's your choice.
If people were to look at my life though, it's like, okay, she's married, she's in a heteronormative relationship, she has children, but she's obviously an ally, and she talks with her kids about these things, you know what I mean, that she thinks are important. But yeah, I mean, I think as allies and sharing the message of inclusivity is important, and so doing a Pride episode I think is important, you know what I mean, even if you and I are not waving our flags and you know what I mean, like sharing all of our stories. But I think that it is important to have these conversations. I think it is important to be inclusive, and I think it's so important to have be at the forefront of everything, because regardless of somebody's preferences or the gender role they decide to live in or play out throughout their lives, that's their business, and they're our relatives. They're our family, you know what I mean? And we need to take care of each other. So that's really that's where I'm at least. That's what I believe, and that's the message I have no problem putting out there, to the world.
Yeah, so. Like I've said it before, I even said it in I don't know, other things, but I've always said to people, I accept you for who you are, and that's never changed for anyone, unless you're a really big jerk. But
yeah,
I accept you're a jerk, but
there's people that I don't accept, for sure, but it's not the LGBTQ plus.
It would never be that reason.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about Pride Month and parenting? Well, mine's a 5-year-old, so I don't want to talk to her about dating at all.
Yeah, it's not really age appropriate.
But one thing I find really interesting with Frankie is, when they're young, they learn boys, girls, and genders.
Yeah.
And so one time I was like, Frankie, are you a boy or are you a girl? And she's like, I'm a Frankie. I'm like, okay, Frankie's a Frankie. And,
yeah.
She doesn't identify at the moment as he or she, or a girl or a boy. She's like, I'm Frankie, I am me. And, so I'm like, okay, Frankie, you are a Frankie.
That's cute. I love that. Yeah, I think, my kids are a little older, so they're at the age now where they're starting to ask more questions, you know what I mean? And the world around them is really opening up, especially online. You know what I mean? So it's like I have to be there to have conversations with them about, everything. But, when it comes to like sexuality, gender, identity, that sort of thing, and then of course, other communities, I found myself in that position, and luckily my husband and I are both very accepting. We consider ourselves allies, and we come at it, like I said, very like letting our kids know that the most important thing is to surround yourself with people that accept you and that you feel safe around.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just really basic. And people who are judgmental or mean or hateful, you can choose to put distance between yourself and that person. And that's good and that's healthy, and that's how you kind of protect yourself. And then, of course, arming them with knowledge, because there's a lot of history that the kids don't understand. Like, they don't know why Pride Month is a thing. They don't, and so we share that history with them. And we even have conversations now with the older ones who are becoming more attuned to political climates,
Mm-hmm.
and how this relates directly to their rights, and how how they vote can affect not just their rights but the rights of others.
Mm-hmm.
And so having that conversation has been really interesting this year too. So that's kind of how I think it's just like a parent's responsibility to protect their children and accept their children and love their children and guide them, as best they can.
I know sometimes, like, looking out in Navajo and Hopi culture and everything, they're very gendered.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the males do this and the
Yeah.
females do this.
Yeah.
And so sometimes talking about gender in that way can be really limiting. And I know, like, I've seen, like, Facebook comments in groups like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
you shouldn't force girls or boys to do something. But,
Mm-hmm.
like, with, like, the culture and everything,
Mm-hmm.
there's definitely roles that are specified for different things. And that can be, I guess, challenging if they don't fit into a specific
Yeah.
spot. But I've seen, like, some of my cousins who, I have one cousin, she's very masculine in just the way she presents herself, but she still participates in the more female roles of her culture and her traditions.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely different ways to go about it, and I think it's each individual's
Yeah.
persons on how they go about, interacting with their culture and how they want to do that.
Yeah. And I think it's fun. For me, I think I like the idea of gender fluidity, because I present myself as very feminine, but I think in the way I think and the way I do things, it's very masculine. You know what I mean? And I really do pride myself in that, and I like that about myself. And I like that I have to accept myself first, and not be mad at myself because I'm not falling into a specific, into a gender binary where it's like feminine, female, masculine, male.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in college, I remember coming upon this study that was done about the 4 genders that were identified within Diné culture and life. And it was basically Hastin, which is masculine, man or male, Astan, which is feminine, female, and then they talked about Naglehe, which is like the like people who are like, they're born with both sexes and they have both genders in them, so like hermaphrodites. And then they talk about the feminine male and the masculine female, and they're all identified. So there's the 4, and then there's the one in the middle, and the person who is like, people who are born with both, they are considered, sacred. They're, at least that's how it had been before, because they embody both. And it was interesting too, learning how that's actually not as uncommon as we think.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at research. But what happens, and what's been happening for a number of years, is that when a child is born like that as a hermaphrodite, it would be the parents and the doctors that would decide how they're going to assign sex and gender to a child, without letting that child grow up and decide for themselves. So these children, they grow up to adults that feel this conflict because they're inherently both, and they have both parts and they have this different way of thinking, and it's a beautiful thing, but they're not taught that that's even accepted. And so I was sharing that with one of my kids, and they're like, oh my God, I had no idea. And they're like, that's messed up. And I'm like, it is messed up. So we had this whole conversation. But, so it's really, I'm really grateful for my education. I will always be grateful for my education, because it gives me things to think about, and it gives me answers to questions that are out there, and I can share to try to, inform other people and let them know that, there's more to this than you think. So, dig a little deeper, scratch the surface, because oftentimes the surface is just superficial, so that's what I have to say about parenting and Pride Month.
Yeah, so it's just, be who you are.
I think one of the best things we can do is just, give people who are part of the LGBTQA+ community, give them the opportunities to, share their story with you, or, have places of leadership within your families, within your household, within your community, give them the opportunity that you would give anybody, have the compassion that you would have for someone who is, who identifies as, heterosexual in a heteronormative relationship, give them the same respect. I think that's the best thing we can do for one another, you know what I mean?
Just treat people like people. It doesn't matter who they're sleeping with or who they find attractive. It's their personality traits and qualities, and the things they do is kind of what matters, not who they find attractive.
Yeah, and it's that's none of your business either. You know what I mean? Mind your business.
I see some of these posts, and they're not gonna hit on you anyways.
I know, for real. You're not even a part of the conversation. You're probably not even on their
radar.
Yeah, you're just I know. I think some of the loudest people that are anti and mean, it's just first of all, this doesn't affect you in any way for the most part. Be cool. But yeah. And we're in an election season too, which is interesting, because we, who supports, these other, parts of our community as a whole, and who is going to uphold your rights to be who you are, and who's going to try to take it away? That's an interesting question, you know what I mean, that we should think about. Anyways, I think that kind of goes into our next topic for our next video, so I think we should end it here.
Alright,
I think we've exhausted the topic. Thank you guys.
Bye.
Bye.